Sanibonani, Ntombenhle Khathwane. Welcome to the inaugural podcast for the Bridge podcast series, which is going to be a weekly podcast focusing on issues pertaining to what's going on in Swaziland and around the world in a way that affects Swaziland and the people of Swaziland. So today, our first guest, and I am so honored to be able to be co-hosting, as a guest host, speaking to someone that I admire and have learned so much from, Mandla Hlathswayo. Mandla, thank you so much for joining me on this inaugural podcast and coming to share your wisdom and your journey with us.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu nami kuba nala Khathwane emsebenzini lo sicalo ngoba ngazi ukuthi langa lokuqala umsebenzi lomutse langazi usathaba nemalanga kuyinto kodwa impela ukuthi sibe nelithuba lokuthi singahlala phansi siteke takithi.
Yebo.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu manje.
And ethi ubeka kahle mawuthi sicalo ngoba into loyijwayele vele into lo wayenda nyalo nje into vele ngene enzabeni sikhulume ngimsebenzi wakho ukuthi umuntu locala into etiningi into lothume ngayo kakhulu ukuthi bongwalo labacala iphutemo the people's movement. So maybe asingene kuyo leyo ukuthi njengomuntu losihamba ukuqala into kwaya ngathi ucale ube i-founder of such a big organization.
Cha, ngiyabonga kakhulu. Kumbe ngidawubela emva kancane ngithi ngithole ithuba la kwesikolweni sikhathi lesi sihambile angena late esikolweni ngiyawenda grade 1 sengina 11 years mangithola ithuba lokufunda sukela nje primary izoqheza singene e-university umuntu kumnika isithombe nekufunda lokuthide ikakhulu mawuqhamuka emakhala nganalutho mineke ngichamuka emangweni la vele besinganalutho liclass lam nje lebesifunda kulo bekusihlahla samangoza sihlala lapha sesihlahla samangoza uma ufika e-university ufika uthole lithuba lokuthi ungafunda ngento letinene ngetulu kwale class lolungenelako uthola lithuba lokuthi ungatama ukuthi ufunze ngokuthi impilo yini live linje mangabe ufuna ukukhuluma ngelive ngeeconomy ngawo konke nje lokwakha live i-university kunika amathuba lamanengi ukuthi ukufunze lo e-university ke sathola amathuba ukuthi emva kwama class ensihamba ama-staff la phasi nje sikhuluma nizabade ukuthi wena umhleko usuka kaNohlupheko wena uMandla usuka eMfabane wena usuka eNgonini sikhuluma nje ukuthi lelimuva lethu lithini kube ngiloko lokusenda ukuthi sikhone ukutibona ukuthi akusimje kuphela lophuyile sonke lesikolo sebantwana labaphuyile labanganalutho lokuba sesikolweni labantwana laba sebangemathemba abatali babo bangemathemba emango labaqhamuka khona kusiteke kuleto nzawo la sihleti khona sihlatiya sibuka nje impilo kwaba ngilasibona khona ukuthi hayi man le live ngeke lithuthuke lisibeka esigabeni sokuthi bantwana labafana nathi bangene esikolweni bafike ngisho e-university ngekuschool plan ye live akusikwodi ngoba thina labanengi singena esikolweni ngengodi nje usube khona kumbe lokwelako ngalo ugcina utfola sosesikolweni ipudemo ke iqalwa abantu ngathi nje bantu abemaswati lebe babuka simo se-living nokutibuka nje bona kwekusuma ngabe sifuna ukuthi sibe live kusasa lalapho bantu abethu bathi abanemathuba langqono kunathi kubalulekile ukuthi singayikhombe embili vele ibe yethu lenzaba ukuthi le live lakho kanjani. Kubanti ke lokhu masingasikhuluma ngako konke ngeke sifike endzabeni lekuningi lengathi ukuthi ufuna ukukhuluma ngato. Kodwa nje iphudemo yakhiwa kakhulu youth of that time in 1983.
Unangakho umnyaka wena lapho?
Bengumntwana kakhulu. 83 umuntu wa 57 ngatibalela singanani. Manje ke angisumlo othanda kubeka embili iminyaka ngoba mina ngibona ngisena 40 yabona. Kodwa ke vele sasebasha ngoba besilabo 26 years. Ngani umuntu uqala level asakhulile. Kodwa lokubalekile ukuthi iphudemo mayakhiyo akusuka manje le youth yahlangana yona siyakha iphudemo. Le youth yahamba yabo onke ama leaders leswatiko emlandweni waseSwatini. Bobabe Ambrose Zwane sabavakashela sawubakhulumisa ngoba iphudemo yakhiwa vele seyiplan esibili. Plan yokuqala kwakuvusa iNNLC. Leyo plan yasehlula ngokuthi labantu labadzala bebakhona bo Albert Shabangu nalabanye nje nabo Samgate wakhanzeka ukuthi hayi eMandla sekude lenzaba seyabe ngama leyo ukuthi kungavuswa iphathi letawulwa nebukhosi ukuthi kuvuswe amaphathi eSwatini. Kwangila sibona khona ukuthi kude sevele sesetandleni kithi. Yakhiwa kanjalo ke iphudemo. Kodwa kwakunengi lobe kwenteka ngatotkhasi ngoba kwakunema problems eSouth Africa. Sinema problems nathi eSwatini sihlukumedwa libandla leliqoqo labo babemfana sibili. Nalabe bahamba nabo. Lokubalulekile ukuthi ngekwethu kubuka bekokuthi lama colleges lama universities akube tikolo tekokuthi banifana akasimaphuma nesitifiketi aphinde futhi aphume nelwati lwempilo ukuthi ulisotsha lekwakha live. Nomuntu awuphuma ube ngidokotela awunwe lapha nje kuphela aphinde futhi wakhe lo muntu lomlaphayo ukuthi sinemsebenzi ukuthi semukele ukuthi le living elethu kusemandleni nethu ukuthi silwele ukuthi silibuyise etandleni ukuthi litawuphathwa abantu. Ngani ngekuthi besiphila ngema royal commands.
Yathi nami ngikhula nje Swatini I think emaswati lamaningi vele sikhule esinalento ukuthi isikolo simtoka kusebenza kumtoka to the point ukuthi nyalo nje even nala South Africa la sikhona khona nyalo sikhuluma nasemaveni lamanje nje la kunemaswati khona maswati ayakhona ukuthi akhone kusebenza aphakame kuma institution lamakhulu ngalokuthi akavilaphi kufunza akavilaphi kusebenza. So nawe soyangibuta nje vele ukuthi nanami nje angathi ukuthi leyo philosophy yaqhamuka phi ngimncane ukuthi noma ngabe kwenzakalani isikolo simtoka nokuthi kumele ngisebenze ngicede isikolo angihambe ngiyosebenza. And ngiyacabanga ukuthi lo sekushintsha ekhaya because lokhu sihleli nje nyalo ama-university ayisasile university wafunza kuyo wena nanoma ngabe i-university beyingasiyo university le had the best is like what can I say campus compared to other campuses overseas, but in terms of quality of education and the quality of graduates it was very high. Mawubuka nyalo i-university seyinjani yini leshinjile and yini lemele yenteke ukuthi ikhiphe ema graduate latakhona kuhambisa iSwaziland into the next growth cycle.
Uyabona lenza bayikolwa ema university ihambelana nemigomo welive kokusile live umgomo nokuthi imisela nje kwelive sithi misele sifuna ukuthi sibe yini ngebantu lesinabo nelive lesinabo. Laba kwati kubuka 22 bakhuluma ngokuthi the biggest assets for any country nglabantu ma assets nje lahamba embili ngoluntu but umuntu uba asset ngokuthi uinvestile lo ukuthi umdevelope afike esigabeni sekuthi abe nelwati hayi nje lo lasesikolweni nelwati lokuthi angaphilisa njani iproblem lesinayo inkinga lenkulu esinayo ekhaya ukuthi labaphathi belive bade clear national plan ukuthi iplan yethu silive sifuna ukuthi bantu bethu bonke baphumelele esikolweni ngetulu kokuphumelela esikolweni mabaphuma la sikolweni kufuna babe sezingeni hayi nje lokwati kubala nokwati isingisi nokwati ihistory kodwa babe nendlela yokuthi la sikolweni bafunza batfule nakulesikubita ukuthi ama basic skills umntwana afuna saphuma esikoleni aba understand asiyini electricity kulamanye imali bantwana baphuma bane basic woodwork uyakwathi ukusebenzisa isigodo ubate wende noma ngayini lokwentiwa nje ngeliplan uyakwathi ukuthi uunderstand iagriculture ukuthi ungaphuma uhambe uyolima ngemfundo nje loyithola esikolweni before uye college umuphuma esikolweni we are maybe to vocational education kufuneka ukuthi ikwadi ukuthi ilolonge that little that you were building esikolweni ukuthi ungakhona ukuphila ngalo uncenye umechanic umplumber ku community usafuna umsebenzi ufuna kube khona lo ungaphila ngalo the education system yethu ungathi solongilena nathi lebesefunza ngayo lebesibona nanathi sasesikolweni ukuthi iyashoda le system ngengaba nelithuba lokuba seGerman ngaleni voda boshukela ukuqala lebe kumangalisa bosi mawuhlangana nalama managers laba lingani bakho uthi mawuya ekhaya la bahlala khona ukhanza bane workshop uzawo but wena wafunzele umthetho manje lama workshop no that's my hobby ngisije uma ngiphuma emsebenzini bose ngena ngendelo uthi uyabuka kusiwendana lethu lethi ngilabafunde esikolweni sine yethu education ngilena lefuna kwati ukuthi kodwa labo sibeni bekungibani kwamilena kwakungibani ngabe Queen Elizabeth washada nini kude la ukusitha khona into leyo uma ukufuna ungakuthola ngoba khona nyalo kunema system mawufuna la ku internet yakho uyakhona kuthola the names uyakhona kuthola lama dates sifundziswa ukuthi sikhumbule lebe sitshelwa bona eclassini hayi simasila khathe eclassini sifunde kuqabanga sifunde kubuka ukuthi thinking athethu singatsolve njani because lento lengiyona ikunika emandla ekokuthi utawuba umuntu utawukhona ukuphilisa nilokwati ukuqabangela ukuthi bukela ukuthi I challenge lo hlangana nayo uyisolve njani iuniversity ke today netikolo kuhohlokile kuhohlotwa ukuthi kude the national plan lehambelana nebudget lethi sifuna ukuthi education ne vocational education nema universities kube ngona into radical deliver lesitawufuna ukuthi emhlabeni sisebenze ngato kude kusibe number 1 kude live la thuthuka la taka nje kube ngumlingo uthi nje wena ndanifaka esikoleni ufuna niphume nonke niphasile without doing anything akwendeki So the reason why university and amakolleji netikolo athohlobo ukuthi side a national plan ne-commitment nje yokuthi umuntu usufuna athuthuke. That would be my summary nje of le nkulumo leyo.
Although I would say ikhona i-national plan yokuthi vele bantu bangabi bantu. Kumqoka ukuthi mawufuna ku-maintain status quo laba phethe lelive kumqoka kibo ukuthi bantu vele bangahlakaniphi. So ngoba ngeke bafake imali ne-investment etikolweni nase-university. Kodwa ke ngicela kubuya kulenza umenshine ngeva ngiphatha kancane nje umenshine Gwamile umuntu engimthandayo and ngeke ngaspenda isikhathi ngifundisa ngaye ngimbuka ukuthi bekangumuntu lonjani bekangumphathi lonjani and yathi Gwamile abe ngumuntu locabangako and bekathanza nalabantu beMaswati ukuthi bacabange eMaswati la sakhona ahlukile kuna Gwamile bekangumphathi lo nkonje akhona ukuthi asekele kuqala kwe-ANC akhona kusekela kuqala kwe the first African newspaper bekangumuntu lohlukile yena but nothi sengimfunza but lokufunda lesifunza ngaye esikolweni akusiko vele lokhu sifundisa ukuthi bekangumuntu locabangako lokho bese kungiletha ekuthenini ke ukuthi uqinisile babi Mandla ukuthi akusiko futhi naseSwatini kuphela ngibona ngala South Africa ukuthi imfundo vele ayisasifundisi ukuthi sicabange bafuna benda laba sifundisa kona ukuthi sibe ma robot ukuthi siyosebenza but singacabangi ukuthi kahle is this a fair situation kufair yini kuba ngumuntu and ngicabanga ukuthi i-conversation mina nje lebe frustrate ngisase university mangiqala kufunza ngala sengicala kubona ukuthi hayi man kukhona le lokungahambi kahle ekhaya mangikhuluma nabogogo bekukuthi singabona ukuthi kuyini kuba ngumuntu abantu abethu abakufundi lo ukuthi kuyini kuba ngumuntu ma human rights emalungelo ma freedom nje ukuthi ukhona ukuthi udaphe umuntu kodwa ke sitawubuya kulenza baye ukuthi i-national plan what is the vision for Swaziland ngoba I feel like we are lucky as Swazis ukuthi le democracy or the freedom lesisifuna seyendeka sesikhona kufunza eSouth Africa kwendeka leni boMozambique all around the world ukuthi how can we be the model country la khona wonke umuntu akhona ukuthola thuba ukuthi akhona kuba ngabe yini lafuna kuba ngini. Right. So asisibuye ke baMandla back to mawusebenta ke so gcina uyahamba emsebentini uke mention nokuthi bosolu comrade mawusemsebentini so gcina uyahamba emsebentini uhanjiswa yini emsebentini and uyaphi mawusuka lapho.
Okay manje usiza indzaba eningi kanti donke le indzaba lotsinza ukuthi yangidalagida ngifuna ukukhuluma ngicela kubuyela kancane nje loyibekako yaGwamile kubalekile ukuthi sikwemukele ukuthi ngesikhathi sakhe wakhombisa buholi lenamuhla bukhosi bungakhona ukukhombisa wabona ukuthi waba nesibono nesiphiwo sekubona ukuthi yonke le region lesikuyo ide likusasa unless onke ma leaders la khona ku region afake tandla ekuthenini kube nentuthuko letawufika esigabeni ukuthi iSouth Africa ibe free. Kukhona la khuluma khona uthi likusasa laseSwatini ngeke sikhona ukuthi silikhiphe kumsebenzi wakha likusasa la le region neSouth Africa kakhulu bantu labamnyama. Seme lo bekasebenza naye bekakhele ngakithi mina nje la ekhaya kithi besimbuka nje ngesheya kwemfula sithi nakuya ngesheya kaSeme. Ubekwa ngibani ubekwa nguye lokho ngani ngekuthi ufuna belathi eceleni kwakhe atolusa lo msebenzi ngokuthi South Africa ibe nelikusasa lelitawuthuthukisa naleSwaziland. So mina nje mangikhuluma ngaye ngibuka kakhulu women leadership. Ngokuthi phambilini bekhona bomake labakhombisa inhlakanipho lengalo sikhathi bengekho. And ngisho kule region uyahlonishwa ngetendo takhe. After yena kuzange kube khona ileader lekefika esigabeni sakhe nje ngokusebenza nekumela live. ISwaziland bekayihluphekela nalabantu abesaba lamaswati awahlonipha ngoba lenhlonipho leyo ibalekile ngoba ngolokunye sekufiphanise emehlo namuhla. Angakutsheli ukuthi mangisese primary ngangifunda nebantu abenkosi lapha kaLozitha. Bengihlala ngasemfabantu hambe ngetinyawo shayela khathi esigodlweni. Kunomfula lapha basi ngumtilane. Wele lo mtilane lamtilane kunemkhulu bekunemthinjo lomkhulu basi ngasicengane nalomnye babe basi ngisicengane. Uthi maniqhamu ngaso bantu abami nihambe nifunze kahle sengela mtini wakhe. Sifike sikhanze emakhosikazi apheka awashe emabhodo lapha ebukhosini. Sase bantu abenkosi sihambe nabo siye esikolweni. Umuhlangana nasi nje bonge uthi ngumfana enkosi lo. Lona ngumfana eliphuya besifanana. Bantu bongathi babukeka bangasi baqhamuka ekhaya elicinile lelingasi linemadlana. Bebantu abambethe ehlophe. Bobabona ke sicha babukeka labantu abenkosi bebafana nasi nje. Lokhu bekwenda ukuthi nanabo babesabe labantu. Qala nyalo lo ukuthi abantu abenkosi lisesinabo sebantu abenkosi baseNgilandi. Nabo baseNgilandi bafundziswa ngokuthi bangema servants of society. Logo kuthi kimi bukhosi bakangwane ufuna botifune nanabo. Ukuthi buhlangabetana njani nebantu ku modern governance and modern leadership, because ngeke abantu uqhubeke ubaphathe ngendvuku nangesibhamu and think ukuthi that is sustainable. It's not sustainable. Ngithi njani ukuthinze lo because letizaba kuningi lo phakamisako bese ngibele emuva ke.
No, ngiyabonga ukuthi ude lapho vele sale ngikujubela nami ngoba I think istabe siyalahleka lena ukuthi bukhosi istabe siyalahleka lena ukuthi bukhosi bukhona ngebantu angithi and buseva bantu. Bukhosi nami nje ngoba bengifunza ngagwamile kakhulu nje kuloko lengikubonile kufunzile ukuthi bekangumuntu yathi bekatibona ukuthi responsible une respect and accountable kibo bantu. Hayi lento lesisibona yente kanyalo. Kodwa ke lo bese sekuyangicaka kancane babe ukuthi kuye ngani emaswati bese ayadifinyeta avume ukuthi simo sibe ngilento lesengizomela lo la khona bangahlonishwa bangabonwa njengebantu. Ngoba phela iexperience njengoba usho wena mangabe batali bami nje nabo bana experience ukuthi ukhosi benenzaba lebantu beyine plan ukuthi wonke umuntu ifuna kumbona thuthuka hayi ukuthi kuthuthuka bukhosi kuphela imali abahlobene nobukhosi kuphela. Kuye ngani abantu badina sebadifinyeta bangasakuboni lokho about themselves. I think into besikhuluma ngayo earlier lena. And usinze kancane nangakuthi in terms of management yakho emsebenzini lokhona ukukhipha lokho kubantu. But yini kungasasiyo lento leyo manje eSwatini?
Umufuna ukubuka lokho vele kusifosa siye emva kancane. Kube khona iperiod lapho ubukhosi bakangwana bongathi buyabona ukuthi uma ngabe bantu bashiwa ngaphandle ku development labantu one day bawuvuka indlu abantu uthi Sobhuza makwakhiwa Tibiyo uthi le Tibiyo uqala nje ngokuthi sengibonile emaveni la kuthiwa le independence kwekuthi bantu emva kwesikhathi bafika esigabeni lapho bamguqukela khona kuhulumende ngani ngokuthi abayiboni development empilweni yabo uthi ke sakha le Tibiyo sitakhela ukuthi ditawulekelela uhulumende ekusebenteni kokuthi le live lithuthuke netinkinga tebantu tikwati ukuthi le timali takhiwa ngale Tibiyo titaba lusito kukhona namhla bakubita ngokuthi Royal Charter seyindlela nje yabo yokwakha bucili otherwise is a statement Sobhuza wenda a statement sokwakha le Tibiyo umubuyela back to that statement lokuhle kusaba kasichange into labayishingile nje baba sobayibita ngokuthi Royal Charter the statement sisho exactly lenkusho ukuthi Tibiyo takhelwa ukuthi tivikele lobubi lobonakala kulamanye amave lapho iyouth iguqukela uhulumende khona ngani ukuthi sele ngaphandle ku development bukhosi ke lapho khombise ebucili khona ukuthi le timali lekuthi imali telive ukhuluma ngeTibiyo ukhuluma ngetimali etakhiwa ngemhlaba weMaswati ukhuluma ngetimali letiqhamuka kuma minerals tiphiwo temdali lasephatona njengeMaswati letingaphasi kwemhlaba awutiboni tingena la ku national budget yokudevelopa le live kuto ukuthi tinkinga letikhona noma unemployment noma issue ye education noma tibhedlela noma ngile migwaqo lese iphihlika nyalo kubonakala ukuthi lokwendekako leti mali ngabe tibalusito lapho kodwa atikho ku national budget mawubuka the income and expenditure account ya government the income ikhombisa ukuthi imithelo yetinkampani ithini imithelo yebantu ithini iVAT itsiteni lusito lusitfola kulamanye amave lusiteni kude imali yokuthi Tibiyo takhe malini tisuka takhe malini lama royalties emhlabathi athiteni imihlabathi lesibolekisa ngayo etinkampaneni iletheni ngidabekisa nje esimunye the Royal Swaziland Sugar Corporation nyaluthiwa eSwatini not Swaziland lo mhlabathi labawusebenzisako is not private land umhlabathi la kwasuswa khona bonke labantu labalapha bomafuqula nenzaweni letinengi kule indzawo leya kusukela laqeni kwalomfula lokungona uniselwa ngawo lenkampani umuya ekunqwazini tayo uthatha njena the annual accounts bakhipha imali lebonakalako for lomhlabathi kodwa mawuya kuma accounts elive ayikho leyo mali ngilobo bucili ke lobenda ukuthi over time bantu bafike ekuhlaphanekeni ukuthi bukhosi asibo bukhosi lokufuna kubona umuntu athuthuka unanaligama ke lokuthi thina eMaswati sibukeka njengetimfuquda asibukeki njengema citizens part of the challenge bukhosi bangangwane lobunalo ngile ukuthi ufike esigabeni sekuthi bukhosi because of the people emandla ebukhosi la bakhona bawathola from the people but mangabe thina sidwedwe sitimfuquda then psychologically abakhona to relate to umsebenzi wabo ukuthi uyini sibulewe ngokuthi ke kusite na 72 kwaba nalomsindo lwafika esigabeni sokusinga 73 ukhosi uthathe Mandla ngenkhani eSwatini bemuka abantu eMandla ekudiphatha basemuka neMandla ukuthi singaba nemlomo ekuphathweni kwelive kwakheka nento lebitwa kusinamhla iRoyal Command. Royal Command ayikho constitution akangwane 2005 uma kuthiwa nje kune Royal Command ubowathi kukhulunywa nga1973 the 1973 decree lengiyona iniketa ukhosi eMandla ukuthi bangasibusa ngendluzula until sifike esigabeni lalapho bukhosi kufuna to reconcile with the nation and want to basically be subordinated to society. The tension nekungevani nekusubete constructive direction wakhiweni kwelive ngeke iphele. Ngekwami ukubuka bukhosi bufe lapho ukuthi bugcina sebutibeka ukuthi bungunkulunkulu weMaswati and not servants of society. Abekhona emakhosi phambilini emhlabeni kona la Africa lebethi makuphuma impi ahamba embili aphethe ikhala awulwa nebantu babo balwela ukuthi abantu baba babe ngcono hayi ukuthi bona babe ngcono. It's become worse nyalo ngokuthi the population if you look at the accumulated population of young people in Swaziland with no skills, with no education, with no hope for a better future. That population, there is no way you are going to be able to feed them unless you help them to feed themselves. And currently, Lama strategies, of course, angiboni kukhona any chance that that will ever be possible. Nalo sengideviate kakhulu from your context of asking ngicela kuzuba ngibiyele kunayinzaba ukuthi eSwatini ngihambelana ngihamba njani because uyiphakamisile kusuka kwami eSwatini ngisuke sengibuyile ngoba bengi-operator from South Africa ngabuya nga-2007 to be the MD yase-Big Band eUbombo Sugar. Of course, a Big Band ngisebenzile from 87 until 2003 mangidawuhamba ngibe based in South Africa. Mangibuya ke ngibuya ngiba managing director. What had happened is that le ngapane lebesisebenza so lebitwa ukuthi Love yathengwa by a new company in Europe le beyifuna ukuthi restructure singasabi listed now to be a private company. So once it became a private company, we then restructured how the company would be managed. My responsibility as a Swatini, regional executive of running the company. But in general, I'll be based in Swaziland. Kuba nemsindo ke Swatini, umsindo lomunye waqina kushaya nemabhomu kulimala nabo MJ. During that period, kusuka umoya ukuthi inkinga lenkhulu bangangwane lababhekene nayo ngimi. Bangibita ngesikhulu, bathi ngilesikhulu lapho bonke labantu labamosha live bokhela khona. And kufanele sicinywe lesikhulu. Ngetimbobo emuhlo ke kuba khona laba very senior in government babenda Air Force ukuthi hey utawubulawa seyiphumile iorder yokuthi vele sikusoqonga sicela ukuthi usiside ungasifaki
speaking masikhuluma ngaloko nje i-violence nekulwa budlame nje bekuphathe njani nje mina ngathi bekuphathe kabi lo dlame lemibona lenteka leminyaka nje wena beyiphethe njani?
I think to be honest budlame lobongibona nasibe worried kakhulu ngabo budlame belive ukhosi nalabo labaphethe impi nemaphoyisa. In the violence lesibone nga 2021, whereby possibly over 100 people were killed, these people should not have been killed. There was no reason to go on a mowing activity where umuntu is nothing. I-solution ngokusumbulala. And worse, lama grievances that people are raising are not new grievances. They are an accumulated grievance of many years. The youth listener that has had no academic preparation, they have a right to basically demand better treatment than the way the country is treating them. But when the country fails to respond constructively, you actually then are planting the seeds for people who will basically say enough is enough and start basically sacrificing themselves as part of a struggle to force change. And for me, the real major disaster that we face in Swaziland, there was no leadership on the side of government. There was no leadership on the side of the royal family to basically look into how do we deal alesimo that lesibhekene naso. Lesimo besingako ukuthi ufunakala indlela ukuthi bantu bangakhulunyiswa. Move this thing from the streets into a place lasihlala khona phasi sifune emakhaya. And unfortunately, every opportunity was blocked. Even when SADC yenda my efforts to come in to look for ways of assisting the Swazis. Bebadlala masibacelana. Kunengcwala, emva kwencwala sitawukhona khuluma. If phela ingcwala kutelenye solo silungisela kukhuluma. There has been a deliberate effort to run away from wanting to own the problem, which is a political problem. A political problem cannot be solved by using a gun. It can only be solved by sitting down to deal with the problem.
Yeah.
And that's where Bukhosi has failed us. Nanatsige on the side of the progressives. We've had challenges in being able to define the struggle and to define the best way of handling the struggle for change and democracy. How to force the government to the table. It has become too quick to say maybe we can shoot our way. And even that, as unfortunately, in some aspects, has been a little unethical. I personally don't believe that there is a moral justification for shooting a police officer who is manning a traffic environment and umdubulela tono nje of hulumende. Udubule umuntu lovunulile umdubulela ukuthi uvunulile kuneligama malisebenziswayo ukuthi lona uyi-warrior. That for me has also been a decline in our own moral foundation of how we're handling the struggle.
Yeah.
And those are mistakes which hopefully we will be able to find ways of dealing with them, because that even to ordinary people will actually say, are we also that heartless as the people who are fighting? Because we, at some levels, see our standing for change in Swaziland. We have to be able to show and demonstrate to Labantu who are feeling the pressure of being let down by the system. They must be able to see, because no, these are our leaders.
Yeah.
They are speaking the language, they are feeling our pain, and they are working with us.
Yeah. So kuhambe kuphi wrong because ukhulume invote njenge live njengoba nani nje ma progressive uphudemo yini lele kuthi bantu namuhla lokhu eSwatini phela abantu abasibaningi yini ukuthi namuhla lokhu bantu solo akunayo general understanding ukuthi yini democracy silwelelani and ukuthi isolution yethu sihlulwe yini singakakwendi lokho sihlulwa yini ukwenda kahle.
I think we must first also sikwemukele ukuthi from June 2021 emaswati akhombisile ukuthi asenele ngalesi system laphethwe ngayo. Ngasicala emanga masingathe emaswati asangabade. Emaswati akhombisa ngalokho sobala kusasenele. La ungathi thina sisadzinga ukuthi polish ekhona. Emaswati nhlupheko tawo akadzingi nekutshelwa ngesadathu. Thina la leaders me included se asikakhona ukufika esigabeni sekuthi we're connecting with the daily lives of labantu lesikhuluma ngabo. And we're organizing them according to their own environment and their own pain. When the first wave of the national political organization that took place, where Bantu erupted all over the country, people were organizing themselves. There were no political activists everywhere in Swaziland, but people were organizing themselves. Why? Because they understood the situation and the agenda. I think for me, there is a need for us to go back to basics, to reconnect with society, ensure that we are allowing them to lead. And we are not actually going to be providing all the answers. We must allow our people to lead. We must listen to them. We must integrate with them. We must raise as the biggest issues what is touching them. At times we make the struggles too complicated, too philosophical. Kanti bantu bakhala ngokuthi batawudlana. Bantu bakhala ngokuthi bantu abababayi esikolweni. Bade timali tekwenda tindvo nje leti simple. Tibhedlela tite imithi, imigwaqo kude Swatini. Labanye kulinye indzawo bamuka wona lo mhlaba kuhlanyelwe emahlathi. Labanye bebanethi indlela tekuphila bayemuka leti indlela tekuphila. Konke lokho kuthathwa iligama lenkosi. We cannot fight the struggle by changing the issues from what these people are feeling to thina sifuna ukukhuluma ngama human rights. Lama human rights need to be transformed to relate to the daily lives of Bantu. And that's where I think we have a serious agenda to find a way of going back there. That for me would be the way of finding our feet.
It must not be against violence, because there's an overriding idea that democracy, freedom, or change of any system, it's not violence. But I recently came across a new idea that was analyzing, in fact, Emma revolution that have happened, aber sustainable in the world, have been Emma revolution where there's been no violence. And the lady who advanced this study, she said that it takes 3% of people in a country to stage non-violent civil opposition to bring around change. So she gave examples. We would see For example, ngaba into webantu ba decide ukusaba emsebenzini or bantu ba decide ukusaba bhadala ama-tax. By the way, mina nje njengomuntu osebenzako mangibuka ukuthi eSwatini bantu babhadala i-tax kanjani njenge emabhizinisi ngiyathuka ngoba ngiyabona ukuthi i-tax system eSwatini nje vele ayikadimiseli ukubona abantu bathuthuka nje a small business. I support my small businesses. But the theory is that kudzingeka nje 3% of bantu ukuthi stages non-violent change or opposition to the government, and logo kushintsha logo it actually brings more change. And she goes on, it's called the 3%. It's a very big study that's on the internet, and I really enjoyed it. It made sense to me. When ubona kanjani baba, because le violence vele iyathusa, and ngicabanga ukuthi in most cases violent change, it does not bring solutions that let's peace nentuthuko. What can we do going forward and to not go through this process, effort again, or rather let me say experience where there was a lot of violence?
Ngicabanga ukuthi le nkulumo lephakamisako imcoka nokuthi kulula ukuthi sigcine sithi lo mshikashika ukuthi sithole uhulumende lokhethwa abantu sizazi sifike kuwo ngokuthi sikhona ku-flat bomb. Lo mcabanga lo we-mistake. Major revolutions la bekhona la Africa laqinile lalidwa abantu from the grassroots. Even in South Africa, it was not the military struggle that changed South Africa. Kwabangela ukuthi bantu in South Africa standing up and they're saying we have been having enough of lento emabhunu. Not just in Soweto, but the whole country. The workers were also taking firm action. We must suffocate. The economy, size sifike esikhatsini la lapho nani nathi silutho kule economy. Thina kungaba imistake master ucabanga ukuthi isolution ekhaya ukuthi kufuneka sithule idibhamu. Ngani ukuthi lamaswati kufuneka athulule. That's the only way lesitawufika ngayo esigabeni la lapho kuthiwa amaswati athola khona ukuthi phatha ukuthi kwakheke uhulumende lotawuba inhlitiyo yabo. Lo kutawentiwa ukuthi sikhone to go back to basics. Saqala ku-organize abantu from grassroots level in a manner where we're telling the Swazi story and pain of the Swazi ngendlela yokuthi umuntu phaqa uyeva ukuthi sikhuluma ngani. Uyadibona nanaye sangaba nesandla ekuthulakaleni kwemakhambi ukuthi le live liguquke. Kodwa uma ngabe sitawusuka sente shangazi ukuthi yimbi kuphela letawusolve le problem, that khanza sicisa nje ingadi i-progress kube kude lesideni. So I agree vele ukuthi the biggest challenge lesinayo ukuthi emaswati lokuhlupheka kwawo sithatha njani sikubuyisele emakhaya, si-organize emakhaya lonke singakhulumi ngokuthi sine demonstration ya 1000 people, sikhuluma ngokuthi 50,000 people are in the streets atodimanda indlela lekuphathwa kwelive lehlukile kulele lesindlela lesiphathwa ngayo. Sengayiqala leyo program. So the strategy for change in Swaziland is mass mobilization. Lesiyakha ngokuthi sithunga lo msebenzi, sithunga nebantu bonke emaswati atibona kuyayo lento, akusiye into yenhlangano leside noma leader leside.
Yathi I think from 2010 to kufika boma 2013 lapho nje njengeSwati lihlala ngalana bengi-involved a movement esayicala bathi iSwazi diaspora. La khona nje bafisa sibabona ngcono labati ngcono sifuna kusekela ukuthi abantu basekhaya nabo babone ukuthi uhulumende welinyendi usebenza kanjani, uhulumende webantu usebenza kanjani. Ngagcina inhlito yami ibuhlungu sengi-retreat ngasisi involved ngoba ngabona ukuthi into lenjalo kumele vele yendiwe bantu laba basekhaya bakulendzawo. Noma singakhuluma kwanti nokuthi hey vukani man lendlela into tingakhona atisito akameli singabe tinje we deserve better noma singakhuluma kwani angeke site until labo bantu in mess njengoba usho batibonele babone babe sebafuna ngcono. Ubona sekushintshile indloko bantu yes sibonile babhikisha sekuqala nalama violent uprising kodwa in the main bantu sebafikile yini ukuthi sebanga understand abantu ba understand yini ngoba I think esikhathini esiningi I think ukowayisho nawe ukuthi kukhulunywa in a scientific manner kukhulunywa ukuthi human rights yini amalungelo yini engwenela laphi lokho nemuntu yini umnotho kusi simplify into ukuthi nguwe umnotho wena make lohlala kuphi ungenelana kanjani nawo yinzaba ukuthi till manje sese 2023 lento leyo solo ayendeki and ngibuta nje ngoba phela umuntu lo beka involved in the progressives.
Lakhatha one thing le chaza nako eSwatini ukuthi wonke umuntu lokhona eSwatini loluswati nje lophila khona uyakwathi lokuhlupheka sikuyini akafuthi kude nokuthi umtekele ukuthi lokuhlupheka kuyini. Into lengiyona ngibona ukuthi isibambelela kakhulu kule ndlela lesorganize ngayo lamaswati ukuthi one siyakujwayela sine lokhu sifuna ukukhuluma isingisi masikhuluma nabantu bakithi kulesikhulume lesintu. Two sinako ukuthi sifuna sikube ngesilama leaders ayibona. Lokunye lengikubonako mina singa ukuthi sithole lenkhovi yalamaswati angathi siwakwaphisa ekhaya
atsho la ngibati
okay yabona mina besi yesiphise la mangikhulu kunengwebo uthi lothola masebuhlutiwe bathelwa lambiteni yaqwala lengwebo utayibona iphakama ebuya latulu qitheke bose siyayibutha lengwebo ngilama ngesilumbi singema enzymes ngile yeast loenda ngayo lobhaka ngayo nomuntu awenda tshwala nomuntu awenda mahewu usebenzisa lengwebo. Into lengibona ukuthi yenda kokusilomsebenzi wakwakha live lesukelene nawo shangathi ayihlamusi noma ivakali ukuthi le ndlela lesorganize ngayo asisuke lengwebo sase lengwebo kube ngiyona lesisebenzisako lengiyona itawuhlanyela la kubantu ngendlela lehambelana ngoba ingwebo iphuma la kulabantu ayiqhamuki nje ezulwini. Mawusetheke lengwebo bohlatshwa kona labanenge labaqhamuka wonke umango waseSwatini labangibona lefanele singabe bangumlomo walenzaba lesikhuluma ngayo singabe mungi lobuholi nalomsebenzi ukuthi kube ngabo lengwebo yekwakha tigotsi temaswati nalento lesikhuluma ngayo sikhona kuyifundzisa ivakale tonke tigotsi telive uma ubuka labo makhelwane bethu bonke uyababona sibalambele kubambisana nemasondo kodwa abafuni ukuthi bona shangasi lo msebenzi wabo sengabo labatshela thina esikhundleni bona bevethini kunemsebenzi lomkhulu lengibona sisibhekene nawo ukuthi sikwadi ekwakheni lenhlangano nalamabandla lamele bantu ukuthi lamabandla abe ngilengwebu yale live kodwa mangabe sidaba bophambukane thina phambukane kakusilo luthumo kuba into levela nje incike utakhanda ukuthi abasiva labantu ngalokwanele ngani ke ukuthi la ma leaders nalama organizers siwakhabo siyawaimposa akamili la kubo ngoba into lemile emangweni yadata itonga ehlupheke tomanga mangabe kuthiwa kushiswe indlu yamthetho phuma labantu lamangweni bahambe bawulekelela bawugula umlilo kamthetho mangabe kunendlala kanhleko uphuma labantu la amangweni bawulekelela kanhleko into lengiyibona sifuna sivuse ngalokuqinile ngilo ukuthi sikwemukele ukuthi ipolitical leadership ngeke siyimpose kulabantu kufuneka imile la kubo and idawumila ngokuthi vele siqoqa lengwebo ingwebo ke nasebholeni yasebenza ngeke nje uthathe mina uyongifaka ku national team ingwebo ye national team kuba ngilama players lamile lakisi who are the best among us ahambe ayowakha the national team esiyawina ke ngaleyo team the way uhulumende wakangwane lasebenza ngayo akuthathwa abantu lababukeka abanemakhono nenhlakanipho yokuthi bangaba lusido eveni kuthathwa nje abantu ngokuthi bakwati ukukhothama bakwati ukuhlehla nathi sivamile lokungena leto ngodi endleleni tethu tekwakha buholi nekusebenza nje umsebenzi wethu wokuthi sifuna kusebenzela abantu uma ngabe nathi ngeke sibe nako lokuthi sifuna kuphamisa lelizinga leorganizer sifuna kuphamisa lelizinga bekuthi sikhone ukuthi siqhaze lento lesikhuluma ngayo ukuthi kubethe umuntu onengabatha sikhulunywa ngani sidakwenda lo ngokuthi we are choosing the best leaders ngilengwebo le ngikhuluma ngayo
yeah babandla ngivumelana nawe ukuthi buholi has been one of our biggest failures la but I think ukuthi lo bokushito okuqala nawe lokumcoka ukuthi nebantu sibakhe ngoba what happens I think la Africa kakhulu ukuthi kuba ne distance kakhulu between baholi nebantu and akungenzaba ukuthi umuntu ucotfokwane bangabe ane power kakhulu somehow ugcina corrupted uba corruptible kanti so I think ukuthi you know mangifunda ipolitics because I studied politics esikolweni when you were studying when I was studying the module around what does it take for a country to now to consolidate as a democracy to say this is a consolidated democracy there were certain criteria different writers bebawa advance the one that I really like and I think iyashoda kakhulu especially like Africa there must be a certain level of education of bantu and not just the education scientific or about skills or about economy it's civic education because like Africa uyabona ukuthi bantu abaningi sayithola inkululeko but singa understand ukuthi inkululeko isho kuthini yini responsibility yami njengala South Africa ukuthi sinama process amaningi like zinga public participation, public involvement, but bantu abamnyama abaningi as participate ngoba as understand asikafundziswa lokho, and civic education info like lemele maybe njengabo America nabo Germany icalwe esikolweni e primary school. So I think kumcwa sisi emphasize lokho, hayi ukuthi kuphela siphele kubuka ukuthi baholi the best ukuthi baphethe yini, nalokuthi the whole sihambe kanye le gap between labaholayo nalaba sekelayo, ngoba phela mohola siyakusekela hayi ukuthi usihola ngoba usiphethe. And I think that's what happens especially in Africa, ukuthi le gap bantu abaningi abakwadi lokuthi irresponsibility yabo buholi babo at the level of a citizen buyini. Bengifuna nje ukuthi si emphasize because ube wakusho vele earlier. Yeah.
No, that's actually by buholi mangikhuluma ngale ngwebo bengikhuluma ngayo. Bengikhuluma ngako lo lo ukuthi lo buholi bunema levels from the lowest to the highest level. Ufuma ngabe sifuna ukusenda tindvo ngendlela leta khona ukuthi ithakasise live nekuthi be program ye live whether sikhuluma agenda yemandi ngokusukude elikhale lidemand akusi impossible if mangabe kune national plan at the lowest levels nebantu who are actually focused to ensure ukuthi kuthi umlise imdlise emandi emfula noma unasemandi awabanga netingoma. But society ibulawa ngithi labaphethe mave ngekuthi asifuni bantu bavuleke emehlo ngoba bangavuleke emehlo bathi asidlisa kabi. So kuba ne agenda lezama ukuthi information i-civic education kuvuleka kwabantu emehlo nokuthi onishe lo hulumende into lesingafuni siyendeke kuba ngihulumende wembube hulumende wa president and that actually leads to this catastrophic failure. But if mangabe we empower society sine futhi mangabe nje sikhuluma ngasi Swatini, where is small place. The Swaziland is a village with clear national planning. Good as that, so kufuneka kube nelikhaya elitemandi, khaya elitegesi. I mean, a population of 1.3. If we were to count homes in Swaziland, I think mangabe maneng lama homes will be around 350,000. Not a million. 350,000.
But sehluleka ukuthi bantu bakhona ekuphila.
But sehluleka just that against a national budget lebonakala iqinile if we know how to use it. So my view there is that let me investigate that see accident. Is because vele akukho agenda
akukho. And so but Mandla, then you wakhula uhlupheka and waba nenhlanhla wangena esikolweni wa university. Kuya ngani ukuthi uthole leader a big company njenga lama company losugcina ukusebenza nawo aboshukela eSwatini nase South Africa.
Kufika esigabeni sokuthi umuntu angathola asa umphathi wetinkampani letinkulu. Mina ngifuna ukubuyisela back to lesikole lengafunza kuso iUniswa, the university itself. Umuse esikolweni lesibukeka siphuyile njengase university la wethu kangwane. Uyunga nayo ukuthi umehluko lomkhulu tawuthola masuqhubeka uyembili ukuthi wena information nekwati nje bokuhluphekela kusukuthola kanzi laba lotabe usebenza nabo bajayelo sikonke kubalula nje kulatandle ntaba. So lo kwende ukuthi umuntu masangena emsebenzini kube into la ishwayele lo ukuthi vele ufuna ukukhusalela umsebenzi nelwadi kufuneka ulufune uzuthola mina ke ngisebenze ngescience kakhulu kodwa angizange ngifundele science bengenda ilaw euniversity kodwa mawufika lapha kufuneka ngizame ukuthi ngiunderstand isiyini agriculture understand umhlabathi nekuhlukana kwawo understand bomanyolo sibasebenza njani benze ngiunderstand le science yokuhlanyela indlu ikhule ikwazi ukusebenzisa ilanga sebenzise emanti sebenze lohlata ukuthi yakhe kudla njengalokudla asisi lokudla ngishukela noma ngumbili sikhiya salokwadi ukuthi bengumuntu longawubalekeli nalongawusaba umsebenzi uma ngabe kuyawulinywa ngiyawafaka emabhutsi sihambe siyolima uma ngabe kufuna ngokubuka imisebenzi ihamba njani noma silungisa igulumba bekude lo bekungehlula ukuthi ngihambe ngedigulumbeni kusetshenzwe nami ngikhona la lo msebenzi wedigulumba nasemshinini la gaka khona lo moba benginte lokuvilapha lokuthi ngifundzise ngalama process alomsebenzi lo kwendeka ukuthi by the time ngicala kuba ngimanager bengasiye lo manager utafika umtekele ngani ngokuthi ngiyahati so lokuthi ngangiyeka ngemsebenzi bekungabi lula lo kwenta ukuthi uma sowuphethe lo msebenzi nalaba lo sebenza nabo bayati mabeta kuwe noma batonqoma lutho bayati ukuthi utawubutisisa utayiguqula lento izifika esigabeni lengiyona usibona intangithuthukisa so imvele enkulu lengende ngabonakala ngathi ngiyaphumelela emsebenzini akusiko okuhlakanipha kwami kube ukuthi ngifunze kusebenza nebantu ngifunze nokuthi labantu kuze ukuthi babe lusito emsebenzini kufuna bawadi umsebenzi mina ke bengisebenza nebantu labanye ukhanze ukuthi ngema comrades mase sifika emsebenzini kude kuba comrade into lengiyona hamba embili ngema results uthi misela kwakho mawuhlula ngomsebenzi boqoshwa uyicomrade uqoshwe ngimi hayi lo munye umuntu ngani ngeke ukuthi umsebenzi ngiyona nto lengiyona itasenda sibe lutho emangweni emsebenzini nasevele so ema promotions bengiwathola kakhulu ngekuthi labantu labangaphasi kwami bebakhona ukuthi mabasebenza bathole lamathuba ekwadi to a point where vele bathreatenisha mina baphusha mina to take my roles so if mina ngingakhona ukupromotheka shokuthi vele kufuna ngiphume la msebenzini so overall into lengiyona nje ungazi ukuthi ngiqiniseka kakhulu emsebenzini ukuthi I believed in training, I believed in development, I believed in mentoring ukuthi labantu lo sebenza nabo kufuneka bafike esigabeni sokuba nemandla ekwadi sibendayo
nalo sibantu abadi so asisibuke vele indzaba yemnotho babandla because niyo le ngibona sibantu bayiva kakhulu lokuhlupheka lokukhona ngike ngabhala nje baby iminyaka lengcile 2 years ago ngikhuluma lokuthi Swaziland is considered a middle income country.
Yes.
Kusho kuthini lokho and makunjalo kube bekungangena uhulumende lo nenzaba nebantu bekungashintsha njani isimo sebantu.
Sure. Lento leyo imcwaka ngoba nalaba sitako emaveni babuka lo ukuthi le live umnotho walo uma ulinganisa nale population uwenele mos ukuthi inkinga tawo bangakhona abasingilutho kithi kude lobo siyabuka ukuthi le mali yale live ihlephulwa njani asekwenziwa lamaphakelo nokuthi lokufika kuwe etandleni tosita wena kunganani uma ngabe ubuke first i-contribution lenziwa umuntu nje Swatini towards creating what maybe we can call a national cake, leliphakelo lahulumende. Umuntu lo sebenza emafemini lo hola 4,000 ngenyanga. Ubhadala i-tax.
4,000.
Ngibekisa nje I'm looking at tax. Lo hola 4,000 emalangeni. Ubhadala i-tax, income tax. Lo muntu loyo unabantwana abathatha esikolweni uma ngabe uhlala la kubo Mathapha kubo industrial site unabhadala i-rent. Unabhadala imandi. Unabhadala gas. Unagibela ibhasi. How is that possible?
So bhadala tax.
Before le mali ayihole ndaqala kuphume le tax le yakhulumende. Lo hola 4,000. Lo khombisa ukuthi side nembeza. Side nje nembeza andinenzaba nemuntu. Uma ngabe umuntu hola 4,000 sitafuna kumbhadalisa i-tax.
Kugcina kuchecka kwami nje just for ukuthi sibekise.
Yeah.
Kugcina kuchecka kwami la eSouth Africa umuntu lobeka hola less than 10,000 and I think bagcina bayinyusa nokuyinyusa akayibhadali i-tax.
Yes. In South Africa,
South Africa. Because kunale understand ukuthi indleko tekuphila nje diningi kakhulu. So nje kubekisa ukuthi vele sho sikude lo nembeza.
Ngetulo kwaloko lo muntu lo ta ufuneka mangene store babhadala 15% VAT.
Yes.
Yena lo 4,000 keep i-tax le hambe direct yakhulumende. Wangena esitolo 15% wale mali sowusethe.
And le mali akasayiboni ukuthi ibuya njani ngaphela i-tax kahle kahle angithi babamandla kumele ukuthi ibuye ikusite wena. So ikusita ngani esibhedlela, education, imigwaqo.
So lokho kuchaza kona lokuthi vele sinedinkinga. Good lo uhulumende asiyo uhulumende wemuntu lohluphekile. Umsebenzi because philosophy yethu yahulumende kufuneka ibe la ekuthenini yini purpose yahulumende. Umgomo wahulumende yini? Umgomo wahulumende intuthuko yawo wonke umuntu. Ngokuthi hulumende endimpile ube ngcono. Ngokuthi hulumende asebende ngokuthi wakha indlela tekuphila for all of us ever. Hayi lilanzana. Kulo hulumende wakithi ke akukho lokho. So on the income side what you see is that umuntu nalotelutho utawamuka lelo lide. So vethi kwayibhadala noma usebenza noma uyasebenza. So on the income side the government takes from you. And the totality mohlanganisa lababo income tax, company tax, VAT, nale mali ke yakhiwa outside Swaziland through the SACU receipts. The hulumende uthola la kubo 25 billion ngeminyaka. Lokuyimali yahulumende yokuthi aqhube tinzingeko debantu event. La sinenkinga khona akusiko la eqoqeni letimali. Hulumende is very good at that.
Yeah.
They are actually amongst the best. Ngisho utimali loyendile bayakuhlala lamnyango kakho mamele ukuthi uhambe uyofuna lokunqana longabanika kona.
Yeah.
Ubathe ubika lokwa. Batamane bafaka isikhiya lamnyango. Ngaqhubeki usebenza. Uzo ubabhadale le tax labayifunayo. Ngikhuluma ngabo small business. I'm not talking about big business. Small business, medium enterprises. Behla benyuka babosawula ngetinduku unforce ukuthi khiphe lokho bangakhuthuza bakufole ekhikini. So
nalokuthi nje kumele before ukhona nalokwenta anything kwe business kumele ubhadale lapha yini is registration certificate kuzothi ukhona nalo which you bhadala every year. Yes.
Ubhadala, they call it an administrative fee, the annual fee for having a company. So whether it's making a profit or not, you must pay that minimum fee. But I think the point lebengitamakulenda ukuthi on the side of loqoqa imali uhulumende wakithi ukhutsele and abaqasha abantu labangati lutho bobuka labaphethe loqoqa kwetimali bafuna abantu lababatiko ukuthi labantu laba nama professionals. They will follow every cent and ensure ukuthi it's collected. Lokho kuyasitana ngoba kuyakhombisa ukuthi bayathi if mangabe you want results you must employ the best people. Mase ke uya la nyalo sekucala kwabiwa letimali. You will actually see ukuthi etinveni lethiwa ngumuntu nje longanalutho kude imali. Boga how much money is being spent kusita abantu labasethi market labazama nje ukuphilisa. Ubuke la kule national budget kude. Mababanike 40 million nayo umbona ukuthi wendiwe lo 40 million. It's a lot out of 25 or 26 billion. Liphakelo lenkosi lilodwa. Lenqa imali ku Ranchat Kolwata kangwa. Ungahamba wonke umhlaba ngeke uyithole le discrepancy lendlela uhulumende lanesihlungu ngayo ekwabeleni live ukuthi bukhosi bubodwana bungathatha uma uhlanganisa nje donke imali leti onke lamatiko kukhona labakhuluma ngokuthi bukhosi bula bo 2.1 billion. But some of us masibala sifika la kubo 1.3 but la labatiko kunathi bathi ila bo 2.1 billion. That is too big a portion ukuthi ingaya to one family.
Almost 10%.
If even la kuhlushe konje ngalokhu kuhlushekile Swatini. Boso buka imali le yaku army le emasotsheni letintwendi lethamba nalokho. Ukuhlanganisa kwenga le mali lesiyispenda on health or education. Law again tells you ukuthi kude ukuthi misela netifiso ukuthi le live efuna kusebenzela umuntu. Boso ke kuba nalento ukuthi le mali bekwetandleni lethutako. Le tandla letiphatha le mali tiyavuta. Noma sebayithethe le bayithathako le lite lelisele ngiganikhalela kulo ukuthi lifaka ema drugs ebedlela. Bhadala bonesi, bhadala bodokotela. Bhadala bothishela ufakwa tinto leti intuthuko etikolweni. Uphethe cellphone la ine internet. Ine tinto letinengi tebciko benhlakanipho yanamuhla. Bantwana bemaswati abafundi ngecomputer. But kufuneka bangene in a world lephila lesebenza ngecomputer. Lenhlakanipho umhlaba lesiku awuke miyagijima. By the time nomfana aphuma esikolweni uyobe asicili salamanye emave ngokuthi utelutho asikakhoni ukuthi simnike emandla nenhlakanipho ukuthi angaphila emhlabeni.
Kanti le budget lesinayo beyingakhona ukuthi wonke.
Kanti kube besinanembeza sinemgomo sinetindlela ukuthi live leluswa eParliament lekhethwa abantu. Inkosi noma ngayikhona ide sandla. Umsebenzi wenkosi fanele singabe kubusisa tindlu letintu abantu. kunanaligama lokuthi inkosi ngumlomo longaqalimanga. Umqosi sihle sibuyela emsukeni wetinto. Umsuka wale sisho leso usuka la ekutheni bantu sebancumile. Uma inkosi ibusisa indvo lenqunywe bantu. Ngakho ke ngeke akwadi iqale manga ngoba wenda lokho longibona bantu sebakunqumile. Lokuthi inkosi bengumlomo longaqala imanga kwenteka uma ngabe live line parliament elitimele. Uma ngabe bukhosi butase bu replace le parliament uvimba abantu ukuthi bangaba nemlomo. Ngeke kwadi usitaba ngumlomo longaqala imanga. Queen waseNgilandi nang Charles longenile bangumlomo longaqala imanga le Europe. Ngane ukuthi iparliament yabo isebenta tonke tinto. Umsebenzi wenkosi yaseNgilandi ukuthi yemukele ukuthi idemocracy yaseNgilandi seyisebentile seyakhe nangumthetho. Kwami njengenkosi yabo sekuthi ngisayine njengokugqwalisa ukuthi vele kwentiwe ngendlela emthetho. Ayikwathi inkosi yaseNgilandi kulwa nebantu noma ilwe neparliament ibange uphatha wabo bantu akusiyo. So on the issue of the governance of just ema resources ahulumende nemgomo wahulumende inkinga lenkulu lesinayo ukuthi uhulumende utubona umgomo wakhe ukwelusa kusebenta tifiso tebukhosi not tinzingeko tebantu. So that weakens us. Bose ukuthi ke wonke umuntu lophethe kahulumende ngeke uzobekwe ungafunwa inkosi. Funeka ufunwe inkosi. So that economy of about 26 billion Makaqhamuka Royal Command ithi funeka imali lethite ka education yowenda kwekuthi iyaphuma. Imali ka agriculture kune Royal Command lethi iyaphuma leyo mali yowenda lokho lokushiwo ngile Royal Command. So the efficiency nema policies ahulumende akukhoni kusebenteka ngani ngekuthi akwakhiwa ngendlela yokuthi kutawusebentela umuntu. Noma ngabe wena as an officer lokahulumende uthi udimisele kwenta noma ufuna kwendani kude lokwathi kuphikisa iRoyal Command. Nyaloke sekukhona nalento yokuthi bantu sebayitfolile inhlakanipho laba khona le kangona ukuthi uyakwathi ukusebenzisa ligama lenkosi. Uyafika nje uthi iRoyal Command isakwendiwe ukuthi kusethe indlela tekubuyela emuva yohlola le Royal Command usiliqiniso vele uyahlonipha lo kuthiwa kwendiwe. And that is what is driving corruption, driving the inefficiency and failure to address a very small population of 1.3 million with a massive budget. Boso ke kuba ke nale bigger economy even. The bigger economy even isuka from agriculture here to industry here to services outside of government business. Government business ngeke uyithole contract le serious ungahambi nebantu labatutana nalapha eMandla khona. That's why bo Nyathi they are always the ones that get big jobs. Umuntu awuqhamuka nje nenkampani yakho Vuketaleni Ltd no one will be interested in Vuketaleni ngani ngekuthi ude ma connections. Umubuka ke the broader economy the government economy is controlled by Bukhosi. Parliament is there, but it has no power over anything. Parliament has no way of saying we're overruling this budget. They can't. Because kude longathi kusemandla ale budget aqhamuka. If you go to the balance of the economy, I always say we must remember that 26% of the national economy of Swaziland is one company, Congo. Khipha Congo, who share the balance of the economy. Nale portion le controlling hulumende. 60% of that economy is directly controlled and influenced by the king. That suffocates, keep everyone long as connected from being able to make a living in Swaziland. There is no good indlela lotawungena ngayo ube ne business lephilako. Uya in the sugar industry. Usiyofuna transport ekufala shukela. Ufala umoba. You can't. Because they are already there. They have a company, transport. Inside the company, whether it's Ubombo Sugar or Smunye, because are the dominant player. Ubombo, they are 40%. Smunye and Mhlume combined, if I'm not mistaken, it's about like 55% as their share. And you go to all the industries, they are dominating the role of the family.
So, because butfola budget, it means it follow imali through majority ownership
Bulama industries. That is the role at the bill. The scaling up stibe betakhelwe kwekuthi details imali ediyakhako kufanele ngabe iyavela ku national budget. Lo 26 billion ngabe akusiye 26 billion. Ngabe is a bigger number. Leo number is set to deal with all the other issues. But all that is controlled by Bukhosi. That concentration, lokodla, tinvo delive, lento le kusihlava lesibi lesakhabutha lesakha kungevani lesihlanyela nje every day sikhuluma nje ngaloko sikhuluma ngeke ubakhanje baseNgilandi bakhuluma kanjena ngelive labo nebukhosi babo. Why? Because kude lapho ubukhosi babo eNgilandi labahlupha khona ababangisi lutho. Eswatini kude singe uthi ubukhosi ungagodla everything and bakhe the kind of inhlupheko lesiphila ngakho kude na.
And ngiyacabanga kumgcolo sikhombela ukuthi into lensha le akusiwe ukuthi ivele bekuvele kunjalo ubukhosi busebenza njalo into yanyalo. Ngikhumbula ngifunza for example masingabuka umhlaba i-ownership yomhlaba, right? But sithi Swazi nation land,
Swazi nation land.
Swazi nation land. Swazi nation land, right? Not Swazi royal land. Umhlaba webantu lo. And ngathi sobuza noma ngabe khona lokubila kwenda. But maka decide ukuthi untoba neSwazi nation land lapho sakhona 70% of umhlaba ukuthi ube under Swazi nation land. Bekathi uya protector. Ufuna ukuthi lo mhlaba uhlala uwebantu usebentela abantu bakhona ukudiphilisa ukuthi sebenda. Enyalo lendaba sekungakhona akusasinjalo. Swazi nation land actually it's like awufisi nokuhlala khona ngoba at any time awusanayo le security awusana safety at this time because it's seen as umhlaba webukhosi bodwa hayi umhlaba webantu. Kwenzakalani yalo ngalomhlaba?
Ngicabanga ukuthi la Khathwayo sidinga ukubeka ukuthi at independence emangisi beka controller wonke umhlaba kangona. They were controlling almost 66% of the land. So vele sikhona lesingeke sokuthi lo monakalo nekuhlupheka lobe kwakhiwe ngemangisi ngikumuka abantu umhlaba bekufanele ufike esigabeni lapho kulungiswa khona lapho sicala khona nje umsebenzi ukuthi sivala deposits nomonakalo lo wendeke over the centuries. Lo ngibona kuphuyise abantu ngokumhlaba lo mhle wonke wawuthathwa ngolo mhlaba lo ngona uyi private sector namhla. Lo munye ulimi amahlathi ulimi boshukela usebenza nje neliningi even. Sobuza naye waba ngilomunye lophosisako because ucale kuye lo uthi Swazi Nation land itaweluswa inkosi in trust igama balisebenzisa in trust for the Swazi Nation. So lokwendekako uma kufika a businessman athi ngifuna 40,000 hectares ngawuhlanyela hlahla kulo 40,000 hectares kutawenda an agreement between Lengapane, which is the private sector, and the Swazi Nation, which is supposed to be us. Because the king holds this in trust, he will then be the one who will sign on behalf of the Swazis. Lokwanakala kuqale khona la during Sopuza's time ukuthi once kwasayina letimali masetingena they are not accounted. Kude umgomo ukuthi we must know ukuthi onke lamaphakelo etimali langenako ngaphasi kwemhlaba ngeminyaka endimali engaka and le mali itawendana. Kungenteka lenye vele iyohamba yosetshenziswa ubukhosi kodwa yadiwe ukuthi imalini nalesele imalini la sekufika kwabantu khona nyalo ukuthi sekude kwesaba nanembeza ekwemukeni umuntu umhlaba kanti isikhathi sasobuza bekuba khona lokwesaba ukuthi ngabantu basemhlabeni ngeke nje ubamuke wakwenda kona lapha eSimunye but generally bekukhona lokwesaba ukuthi funa abantu bahlonishwe emhlabathini wabo nyalo sekude lo. So the issue of land and minerals, it is a big issue in Swaziland. Why? Because it's a private property. Liphakelo lebukhosi hayi welive. Lento leyo iphikisana nemigomo le sayinwa nguye Sobhuza ngoba le charter lengikhulume ngayo lesebakubida ngisi charter nyama lokwakha laba botibiyo kubhalwe phasi akafihlakali futhi kuba nenzaba labo 1979 in Swaziland lesitshinisana lenzaba ukuthi letimali letitabani letimali letiholwa through tisuka through botibiyo kuba nalenye lijala kandaba leliboshelwa ukuthi lithethe imali ngaphasi kwalamaphakelo lawo wahamba wenda info yakhe la eTanzania base ba decide kumbopha enkantolo ke awukwati kumuntu kumcharge ngetheft uma ngabe ngeke ukhona ukukhombisa ukuthi lento lothi uyebile inemnikati lo mnikati ngibani. So they face that case la bekufanele ukuthi decide ukuthi mangabe simcharge ngetheft lento la ebile yenkosi mangabe yenkosi kuphi lo lokusivele kwenkosi. It was a bekwe case le abalukhuni nje ngane ukuthi yayinemahlazo ekhathi ukuthi itabangcunula But Sobhuza was brave. Waphumela ebaleni ukuthi yes, le mali ayisiyo yami yelive. Khuluma ngalethi imali daboti isuka, imali daboti ibiwe. Akusiyo kwami wesive. Nami ngizama kuphila kulo kwesive. But the big issue for me was that wamukela ukuthi le imali leti delive. Njengalokho vele wakusayinela as such. In the economy, iSwaziland kwenta ukuthi le development yayo ingakwadi ukuthi itasihlonipha sonke, itawuhlonipha lonke live, itawunika wonke umuntu emathuba. Mangabe bukhosi bucontrola 60% of the economy. Because it basically makes all of us foreigners. We are not citizens. We have no rights in our own land. Ngonje labanye bahle bakhuluma ukuthi umuphikisa because bangakwemuka nale citizenship. Shangathi liphakelo lokuba i-citizen. A natural right. These are rights endalo. Kuthi umuntu ongakwemuka ama-rights akho endalo. So there is a need yokuthi vele into leti tikhulunywe ti-confrontwe. Ngoba ukhosi uma befuna kuba nelikusasa fanele ukuthi bakwadi ukufacana nalama issues lawa nebantu. Ngoba le live lebantu bukhosi kutaba bukhosi ngalabantu. Hayi ukuthi batasibamba nje ngabhongwane as they are currently doing. So in the economy, you do have private sector activities, but in all the major private sectors, the Kanza Bukhosi being a shareholder through TBO, through TSU. And that is giving us a big problem. Le live nikinga lenkulu ngani ukuthi lo akusiko kusebenta lokhombisa ukuthi wonke umuntu even part of the economy. Uyingcenye yale live unemalungelo kule live hayi ukuthi nje sonke sitohlehla, which currently is the situation.
So to be clear, because there are rumors going on, are you starting a political party? Have you left Kudemo? Where does Mandla Hlathswayo stand?
Okay, I haven't angaphumi Kudemo. Angaqali any party, and therefore I'm accepting that my comrades have a different vision and approach, and le focus as civil society, how do we build a framework operator nekuhlanganisa emaswati in a manner that makes sense and will lead us to a successful direction that unifies us and does not divide us. I'm also saying it is healthy, we would say, if on principle, as vumelani. Angisukuyenga ngihamba nawe on supporting whatever you're doing when I'm not. I can be a member of Kudemo and accept that there is a leadership that is following a particular program, but I'm not fully aligned, and I must accept that that is the program that has won, and therefore find a better use of myself to be useful in society.
Yeah. To start wrapping up, Mandla, are there any regrets? Are there any things you regret you wish, in hindsight, hindsight is 2020, is there anything you wish you could have done differently, done sooner, not done?
I think the biggest regret that I would have had was to not having done what I did. If I didn't do it, I'll really be regretting that to the founders of Kudemo who are no longer alive. How honorable am I just to look away and not make an effort to strengthen Kudemo? So even when in some years to come I meet them, in afterlife, I think I would be able to have a good argument that I did acquit myself. I did make the efforts that were needed to be made. But I'm still holding firm on the ideals of why Putemo was formed. And when Putemo was formed, it was intended to be, I would say, a broad church that basically embraces and brings all of us under this umbrella. Organizations get mature. We must also accept that Putemo maybe over time gains new currency. And then as it gains currency, it defines itself according to the times. And it's not unnatural for some of us to fail to fully identify with all the elements in it. And what let me say what I'm putting on the table to be too outdated and not as attractive and not as modern.
Yeah.
But what I'm bringing into the table of discussions of reforms, of political leadership, vision of development, is not something that I just made up last night. I've been blessed in that I come from a very poor society. So I know the poverty of Swazi. I know the agency for us to find solutions. Ngibeke nemathuba ekokuthi ngifunze nalonke engakuchaza lokunye. Ngaba nemathuba ekuphasa imisebenzi lemikhulu, ngaba nemathuba ekufunzisa abantu ukuthi bathi umsebenzi. Uma ngifika eBig Band ngithatha sikhundla sekuphatha, there were over 114 expatriates. Bantu labamhlophe labaphethe umsebenzi, kusiwe bantu labamnyama bawati umsebenzi. I accepted kubantu labamnyama, or let me say bantu at the time bebangawati umsebenzi. But we came up with a program yokuthi sitawufunzisa, sitawutrainer. Lesikhona kubamikisa ngaphandle, sitabamikisa ngaphandle. They must know umsebenzi, because wathi umsebenzi akuhambelana nesikhulu, hambelana nengqondo nekufunziswa, ne-practice. By the time ngihamba eBig Band, ngiyasola sithi there were around 12 belungu lebebasele. Bengiba nema-challenges ukuthi kunema-protest. I don't think banengangwane labe baba nema-protest lafana lo bengiba nawo. Ngisima ngise-office suke kune bomake bebelungu bala ngaphandle ba-protest. A-protesta sinqoshe emadvosa emsebentini. Ngiyabenyanya belungu. And I will invite them in. Sihlale njengaloku sihleli. And I will listen to the grievances. Eqilata emadvosa. At the end of it, I will say, lenkampani le iqashe over 4,000 people. 98% bamnyama. Banenhlakanipho, banemakhono. Kude isizathu sekuthi ngahamba ngiye kuhulumende ngithi ndofuna ipermit yokuqasha umuntu lo expert from outside atowenda na umsebenzi na ngibe nayo umuntu lo wathi uwenda lo msebenzi. Phela kusho simangeta njalo kusho sengifuna ngisangiqala emango. Next time kutawuta lo 98% atongishisa. Hayi nini. Singamane sikhulume ukuthi bantu yini problem lesiyakha ukuthi bantu babe ne warning noma i-notice le reasonable. Asasebenza umuntu uyathi kusi in 2 years time tawungena bani vele sokhona la msebenzini tawuthatha lo msebenzi, so that kubade ama surprises. But the truth of the matter is kwakungase izwi letikolo bosisekelo bethi bonke bothishela bakhona bekubelungu. I remember ngazesikhathi khona lijala kaMasuku manje nkosami so washona. He was a very good maths teacher. Ngiyamkhulumisa lo Masuku ngiyamlungisela kusetato ngena afundise imaths afundise abantu babelungu imaths ngoba phela bekudominate bona. That was a difficult agenda. But the long and short of it, we were able to transform. Bangena abantu bakithi bawuphatha umsebenzi lo mshini namasima ashinja from kuphathwa belungu aphathwa abantu. Lento le akusimlingo imfundiso i-mentorship ukuthi ufundise abantu ukuthi babe accountable kusebentana. So mangikhuluma nge-leadership angikhulumi nje ngokuthi ngisebenze eBig Band, ngisebenze la South Africa, ngisebenze eMozambique, ngisebenze eZambia, ngisebenze eTanzania, ngisebenze eMalawi, ngisebenze eMauritius, andalone. Konke lokhu kunika amathuba ekufunza ukuthi yini letinye izinto abantu baphumelela. Lesitheneke kakhulu mineke kakhulu lenkumele nalengathi ngena ngithi ngingahlaliseki. The youth of Swaziland is in one population that is abandoned and lost. They are not the agenda of government. They are not the conscious agenda even in political parties. If mangabe iSwaziland abane future, we need to develop that youth. We need to transfer what we know to them. We need to culture them correctly. Sidinga ukuthi sibafundzise nebuholi sibushokuthini buholi. Yini tindvo umholi abhekekile se utadenda indwa ngabheki utadenda. Yini shokuthini masikhuluma ngemerit. Ukuthi asibeke umuntu ngoba is the best hayi ngokuthi uthandwa ngini. Nami makhona someone lokhona lo ngenda tindvo ngqondo kunami kuthi sizathu sokuthi mina ngibange ngesikhundla nemuntu no imangabe that is the issue then there is a problem with me. But uma ngabe sina nyala siqala inyalo ukuthi sihlanyele sikhiphe slava lesibi inlenve lesifuna ke yakha kude likusasa litaba khona limesinda. That Kansas fana now onke lamave lebesiwaqhaza la bethe failed and failed. Usungazi usi lo kuhluleka uhambelana ngokuba mnyama kanqa. So ungubuta ukuthi hey what's next? The biggest agenda yami ukuthi how do we transfer our knowledge, our skills and understanding to the youth of Swaziland so that the Swazi youth is the most armed in the fight for their own development. And again, nalama development, funakwathi to start building skills. Masikhuluma ngama workshops, akusuba nje i-workshop on politics. There are many things that singekile in life. Sine siyetikolweni la ukhanza sikuthi art. Sicala ukubona sesiphila ukuthi kanti art is valuable. We didn't experience it esikolweni. We need to look to actually activate, encourage every skill that's possible in society to broaden the mind of the youth. And that way I believe noma nathi sesikhweshile from the role of ukuba balimi ngoba mina ngumlimi we political development. Noma sesikhweshile khona abantu abathatha over lamakhuba ekulima and hopefully one day eMaswati atawuvuna tivuno letingqono out of that. And then kusi njena bonke akumile nelikhula no.
No, Kansisa Lesi Valalapu, Babi. Thank you so much. This has been like an awesome, in-depth masterclass for us on leadership, on the current state of Swaziland, on the current state of Africa, the state of democracy, understanding citizenship, understanding social justice, economic justice. And ngithemba ukuthi labo labatawu bebalalela babukela batawu ba inspired batawutsinzeka nabo batawufunza nabo ukuthi I feel like umuntu lo qotho umuntu integrity aka like uthi unesikhundla you are still the same person and I find that very admirable, very inspirational. So ngiyabonga to spend time with you ngibonga the bridge nayo ukuthi nginike ithuba to guest host this first episode and ngiyabona ukuthi kusataba kuningi emahlandla ataba maningi etindzawo etiningi la singakhona kufunza kuwe kumana babe so siyabonga kakhulu.
Nami ngicela ukubonga nje kuwe la Khathwane together with libandla lakho la ka the bridge sembe sindaqhubeka nikhule kulomsebenzi noqalako ngicela nje ngegcina ukuthi uma ngabe kuqalwa umsebenzi sinyathelo siqala ngisele sikhomba ukuthi vele ndimisele kusilo msebenzi usebenzeke ngithemba nje sinami njengoba ningisebenzise sinibe sinyathelo sokuqala kusho ukuthi ngivulela kusinisebenze into lephilako mina ke umgomo lomkhulu engifisa ukuthi ngivale ngawo ngilo ukuthi singemaswati akufuneka sibede kungabada we must funa sibuyise lobuve bekuthi siyini siqabe nebuve bethu nebuntu bethu ngoba ngisho nemakhaya lamasiko langona live lebeliqaba ngawo asafili ngani ukuthi sibena lento ukuthi kube nemagovu yabona i-selfish regime inale problem yokuthi igcina seyakha i-selfishness in everyone. Ngikhuliswe ngigogo ke mina gogo bangimva nenkosi sihlele endzaweni letinengi nagogo lenye into letindzawo ngilapha ebuseleni besihlala endleleni la wenqa khona uma ngabe uya kaHlatsi edolobheni at the time ke bekude transport mangabe ungakathi khona ukuthola le bus yasekuseni lenqa ukuthi ibus lotawuhamba ngayo whole day kude ukuhamba so abantu abaningi bebahamba ngetinyawo bengqela kithi ekhaya gogo ke bekanelisiko lokuthi kude umuntu lowenqa lapha ekhaya angathole manje kunatha angathole mahewu so lokhanza sihlala siphisile kube kwemahewu abekele umuntu lowenqako hayithini kube ngimi ke lo sebenza lokupheka lendengayo emahewu ungangisakasiza ukuthi ngipheke emahewu ngiphekela nje abantu labengako waqhubeka lokuphila kanje kwasingalomunye umnyaka sihledi nje kufika umuntu uthole libhakede usuke nemlomzala was a young person uthole libhakede 20 liter welithula lelibhakede ubeka phansi ngifuna ngibabe usangilethe nalibisi 20 liter elibisi. From that day, almost every week, let's follow a 20 liter from this family. The family, it developer through bantwana balakhaya babe wabo lubeka hlupheka engcala anathe mahewu anathe mandi base maseba impilo seyingcono kubo la mahewu atala la lolibisi that khanda sesidle masi into besingayadi sesidlala ubisi, and that changed our life. What's my point? My point is one of the problems ukuthi life nembeza, life ne-identity semasiko yini. Emasiko akusingcwala nelusekwane. Masiko amaswati deep kakhulu nalokho. Ayunify lamaswati ngendlela yokuphilisana. Besiba kusiwa kunelilima. Sivuke sonke siyosita kamakhelwane ngoba makhelwane unquse umango wonke utomsita. So I'm sure ezisichubeka naleti inkulumo ngoba ngesicethe tongelanga linye. Sitawufika la egabeni ukuthi sisho kuthini ukuthi sesilahlekelwe sithundi sebuntu bethu. Uma ufika eJapan, I'm talking about live a little rich guy, first world country. First thing lo inotisako, bomake bakhona bagqoka ingubo letfika la abatfuni leti gcina la. Hayi ngokuthi they cannot lisiko labo nje. And ukhuluma namantombazana kuno, why ngigqoka kanje? And vele babe embarrassed when you are suggesting something different. Mabakunika into bakunika tanda doti mbili. Akathi umuntu. Sine sinasi sinemasiko la khombisa inhlonipho yethu nebuntu bethu nje singemaswati. That we must not allow to die. Die just because we have got bad leadership. We must ensure that we are pushing back to recover, rediscover ourselves. Thank you.
Ngiyakuva yati ukhuluma bona babamandla. But live lakho, you know, I think babaningi bataya baqala ukuvuva ukhuluma nje lokukhuluma nyalo. Labanye bakubonile labo laba part of ikudemo. Laba letsine lesingekho staba sesitawuva nyalo kule conversation le. Wendiwe yini ukuthi yonke leminyaka bosolo ungasimuntu lo out there ukhuluma uactive? Wendiwe yini ukuthi so ya participator in the trying to get into leadership of we put demo outright, and what's next for you?
Okay. Ngicabanga ukuthi lo mbuto lo phamisa kubaluleke kakhulu. Ngoba vele kukhona abaqabanga ukuthi Mandla uqhamuka Mandla. As isichazile ukuthi from 1983 bes involved in the formation of Kudem. Ngene in the private sector ngasebenza kude la ngemakhona ukuthi sengiyemanyalo to be involved in the big agenda yokuthi le live lifika kanjani esigabeni lalapho lingakhiwa ngendlela yokuthi wonke umuntu lakhe all patriotic and proud kusingemaswati ngebuve bethu. To the extent that in 1992 I was appointed ngafakwa kule committee yokuqala yekutama kwakhiwe iconstitution yakangwane. Sayikhulumisa leyo ndzaba siphudemo leadership yakhona sabukusana sitayisebenza njani. And besithe ngabada ukuthi uma ngabe live lifika esigabeni lalapho lifuna ukuthi kubanjiswane ekwakhiweni kabusha indlela yokuphatha live nekuphatha economy nekudevelopa nje iSwaziland. Kufuna kwendiwe ngendlela etawuba akusindlela enebucili, indlela lehlobile lebonwa wonke umuntu ngokuthi umgomo wayo yini. So in the first constitutional review commission ngaba ngulomunye lwacela ukuthi participate kuyo. Nenhlanhla lembi sangevani nebakangwane nalabo lebebaphethe le program. Asivani ngani, asivani ngenzaba ukuthi ema terms of reference abalulekile yini ema terms of reference. dibopho lokuthenyetelwa tikwato ukuthi sifuna kuqala nangomsebentini wokuthi sifuna kwakhe constitutional leave. Le constitutional leave sifuna kuthende nandona letilandzelayo. Sifuna inikete abantu emalungelo ukuthi bangaba nemalungelo eveni njengawo United Nations isho. Sifuna abantu even babe nemalungelo ukuthi bangaba nemaphathi babafuna kuba nemaphathi. Sifuna abantu babe nemalungelo ukuthi batawuye esikolweni batawuyi right ukuya esikolweni. Letinto leti kubalekile mangabe nakha umsebenzi osifuna kwakha umgomo wephathalive ukuthi ningawuqala lo msebenzi kube netinto letikhanyako lentabeni sebente letikwato kude usilento ntayenda ikwati ukuthi inesekelo lesiqinile. Sehlulana ke lapho ngoba kwakukhanya kimi ukuthi bakangwani nebaphasi ngazo sikhathi bebafuna kwakha into yokuthi abantu bathothi hamula. Ubanike abantu lithuba lokuthi bathi hamule base ukuthi hamula niqhubeke ngendlela lebeniqhubeka ngayo. Emva kwaloko ngumuntu loqhubekako nemisebenzi yeqinisa i-political opposition. Udemo ngisho nema leaders of that time ngabade ndisa ukuthi abathi bengilusito kuphi eqiniseni i-political program ye-organization. Umlingano wami Mario Masuku kubusaphila ngabe yakhulumela ukuthi what role was I playing to strengthen iPudem. And even i-big band became yabang sigodzi lesigcine kabi iPudem because of my leadership khona e-big band. Kuhambe kwahamba nga 2000 saqala lenye i-program sihlangane nebaqashi labanengi eSwatini yokuthi iSwaziland idzinga ukuthi yakhe a national agenda for development. Through leyo program leyo sakha libandla litahamba leyobuka emavi ukuze sobuka tinhlakanipho netifundziso letentiwe emaveni sibuka ukuthi yini lesingayikopa lingasida. Among the things lesakwenda ke saya kubo mainland China, bo South Korea, bo Malaysia, bo Singapore siyobuka macebo ukuthi singaqina njani silive. Through that sabuya ne program le sayincoma ukuthi asekwakhiwe a national agenda lesibita nga Vision 2020. Ngangilomunye wama leaders of leyo initiative. Sase masiphakamisa le nkulumo leyo basizuka bakangwane na hulumende baqhamuka na Vision 2022. Lo Vision 2022 uzama kuphikisa lemibono lebesiyibeka ukuthi le live mangabe sifuna ukuthi liyembili kungendiwana. Emva kwesikhathi ngigcine ngingu-president of the employers in Swaziland. Kuleyo period kube ngilalapho ingosi ifuna kuthenga khona indiza yokuqala kuna Prime Minister Barnabas utanelisu bekusufuna kuthengela inkosi indiza. Vele ke balungisa with the Royal Bank of Scotland. Le mali lefunekako at that time ayila kubo 700 million. Uma ubela uyele kubo 2001 ufune 700 million. That money maso ihlanganise nema interest befuna kufika la kubo 20% of the national budget. Dakusebenza leyo mali yokuthenga indiza. Lomunye wabaphathi now of all the employers in Swaziland. Sasukuma samela inkulumo yokuthi le ndiza ayichithwe. Sagcina sifike to the Royal Bank of Scotland itself in London. Sathola lama documents ekuprova vele kusukuliqiniso lo. Le ndiza ibeyithengwa eCanada from a company called Bombardier. Yaliwa leyo ndzaba yalendiza ngikhumbula nje akhuluma Barnabas athi manje nje sibanga umsindo ngelide Lumende bekazama kubuka kusi inkosi ngathengelwa njani libhayisikili ngani ukuthi inkosi ngeke kubhekeke sitabohamba ngetinyawo and the bicycle ngo 700 million. Through that bagcina kusuka umsebenzi lwahlanganisa 70 all trade unions mason kwakhiwa le Swaziland Coalition of Concerned Organizations. That became the organization lengiyona bese sisebenzisa kulwa lenzaba yendiza. Sayisho eParliament sawuforsa ukuthi ivalo. Yachithwa leyo ndzaba yelondiza. Yachithwa by the combined leadership of business, civil society, and other actors. President of the employers. Ngendani nisilwela ukuthi le live mangabe litawakhiwa ngeqotho funa likwadi ukuthi tindwe letingasiki divinju ngama start ivuma stendeke tawuhloka le live. So beyond that kuthi tenga 2000 I think 2006 2007 kwabane effort kusekwendiwe a national economic review of Swaziland. Lengakhona kukhombisa letimpawu letishoko ukuthi le live alisebenzi ngani. Khona umfowethu lobitwa ngokuthi Allen Gray. Allen Gray, I'm sure you know the Allen Gray operations in South Africa. It's one of the leading investment houses. The owner bekahlala Bermuda. He was one of the members of this commission. And I was an active player and senior player in it to basically do the national review. The outcome of that review was saying to because Bangwane is not sustainable. Because Bangwane we danger to society unless it corrects itself. Nhlahla lembi bavele baqhitha lapha as they normally do, which is why even today we're still having problems. In other words, as a leader and also as just an individual, Lord say agati ukuthi what role I've been playing in Swaziland nokuthi ngimane ngiyavumbuka nje ngilotendisa in Putemo ungakubuka all the documents Putemo manqane lapho bengidesandla khona when they are being developed because bengimnengi la kule area ima ideas. To move from there, I don't want to make the conversation here to be consumed by the issue about Putemo congresses and the likes. But I will just say one small thing. When lang in the corner snumo sokusa ngeke olibele usitini bathambi kahle ngoma ngokusithi kusenjetwe kanje kude ukuthi tindwo khombise ukuthi tiyembili. Maybe it's time that some of us need to come in, force ourselves in to try and help direct the organization. That was the main reason why I decided to participate. But if we are to mawubuka inhlitiyo yalomgomo lebengikhuluma ngawo mangiyokhulumisa iCongress ePutemo, utawubona ukuthi sikhuluma ngebuholi, khuluma ngebuqotho, ikhuluma ukuthi inhlangano yakhiwa ngema-institutions ukuthi kude inhlangano lengaba inhlangano itetinyawo itetandla tekusebenza nematiko lafanele langona akha lenhlakanipho lensebenta ngayo mangabe nakhuluma ngeeconomy, nakhuluma ngeagriculture, noma nifuna kwenda nje. Inhlangano kufuneka ibe discipline. Ngeke kuthi indaba nenhlangano yemsindvo nje. Ngahlala nje nisemsindweni. Kufuneka inhlangano isebenze ngokuthi inetindlela ukuthi ikhulumisane, inendlela ukuthi iyalane, inendlela ukuthi ifuna ifundzise emalunga ayo. Engqikitheni yaloko lengikhuluma ngako about organization. Ngikhuluma ngokuthi it's time we must appoint umuntu. Let's appoint because you are the best person on merit. Asicale nyalo kwakha letinkhomba ukuthi i-leadership le qhamuka kubantu labakhuluma about political change ihluke ngani kule system. What do we do to become an example to society? This is the example of what we mean masikhuluma political leadership. This is the example that we are masikhuluma ngokuthi kutiphatha kusho kuthini in politics, accountability kusho kuthini in politics. Lokhu ke umla usebentile wawukhulumisa ngenhlanhla lembi lendlela yokubuka lengiyibona mina as the foundation for nation building, as the foundation for bringing ethics, morality in our behavior, in terms of waging a serious struggle. Akuzange kuthole kwemukeleka. And as such, because I represent that, I then became irrelevant. As a person who is very firm, angisasimncane sengikhulile. In every society, mature people have a responsibility to stand for those things that must be defended in society if we are going to be a stable and sustainable society. So for that reason, I accepted that the framework of Kutemo is not going to be able to deal with the kind of agenda I'm advancing. And therefore, respectfully, I decided that I must step aside and focus on how best I can continue to be useful in society. And I can be useful in ensuring that we do not allow ourselves to become another failed political process, and worse, even a failed state. Why? Because we did not take time to build the foundations that will make us a winning nation. So I'm hoping that the roles that I'll continue to play will be focusing on how do we basically assemble ingwebu of emaswati. Because we need that ingwebu to ensure that it actually injects in society what we need to succeed. And that basically is my agenda beyond whatever I was actually doing. So I'm 65, but I'm determined to be 40 years old until that agenda is achieved.